Yeah, like I was saying, as far as a black hole, I put that on my Facebook a while back. Probably like sometime in at least around 2015 when I was in Minneapolis. Probably before that.
I got Slasher.
The hell yeah, that's what I think. Okay, all right. It starts off as a star that eventually burns out at its core, and then there's an explosion. Following this explosion, all matter around this gets sucked into a single point that is called a black hole. That which circumvents the center of this star, or at least around this black hole, once it implodes. And then I'm assuming that that's just basically the case forever, because I don't know if anything else that stops a black hole or curtails it in any shape, way, or form. So it's trillions of them motherfuckers around, especially if it's trillions and billions of stars. That would have to be the case. But my thing is, if as far as like particles, if that continually pops in and out of existence, thus atoms, before they take various fucking forms, then where does that matter come from? So, my opinion, I think that the same matter that gets sucked into a black hole is also a part of it's basically like a regeneration process, to where that matter becomes that which pops in and out of existence. That's my opinion on that. But yeah, shit, I was reading, right? 'Cause I'm about to go ahead and do my blog on the Council of Antioch, which took place in 341 AD. Alright, just like the other ones, like the Council of Tyre that took place in 635, 636, 635. Not 635, I'm fucking tripping. Damn. Anyway, the Council of Tyre, and then the one before that took place in 330. Okay, the Council of Tyre was in 336. That's what I meant to say. Anyway, just like those councils, it was like a little fight between the Arians and the Eusebians. No, I shouldn't. Well, basically the people that were considered to be semi-Arians, and then you got the Trinitarians or the Homoousius, that school of thought. So that's what's involved and surrounded the quarreling, or what the whole little fight was about at this council. But they also changed some rules. They had about 25 canons. This is a practice, so I might go through each one that stood out to me. 25 canons and some creeds. Now, before I go further into that, aside from this guy named Origen that was born in 185, it's another dude who was kind of like coexistent to Origen as well. But this guy has a lot of significance. He was born in 204 AD. His name is Plotinus.
He got a D+.
And okay, as far as like a Trinitarian doctrine, right? There's a triple aspect to his concept as well. But though the principle, as far as like the numbers is concerned, kind of parallels to that of the Trinitarian doctrine, how can I put it? His description is different. All right? Okay, as far as this term hypostasis, which basically means like an essence, from his point of view, there are three of them, but they don't represent a Father, God, and the Holy Ghost. From his point of view, it represents the intellect, will, and your soul. You know what I'm saying? That's how he split it up. So and then there was a fourth one that wasn't a part as a hypostasis, but it had something to do with mystical.
3 seconds. 3 seconds.
It basically sounded like, it read to me like they were trying to say it's like a fourth component that's not considered a separate substance, but it concerns combining all three of these substances, and then kind of, to me, points at something like enlightenment or something. That's what it had something. The word or the term itself, the fourth one, has something to do with mystical. But yeah, I thought that was a fucking interesting little fine dude. Like I said, he died in 270, and it was in Italy somewhere, southern Italy, a place called Campania. All right, but he was born in Egypt at Lycopolis, Egypt, in northern Egypt. That's where he was born at. So he like one of the first people, and I'm not going all the way back to Plato and all them individuals, but as far as like during this period, he like one of the earliest people that had like a sort of switch to me, like a different perspective. So I thought that was interesting. Like still paralleling that with Origin is still different, because Origin is also given credit for his point of view, which a lot of people continue to hold, and then later on was also referred to as semi-Arianism, which also, as a side note, makes my point about why Arius is really the original revolutionary on the term itself, and its rigid definition, straightforward definition, really. But yeah, going back to Origin, his is like, okay, Jesus and God are real, but Jesus always existed with God, but is of a separate hypostasis, basically.
That ain't my man. Look, he right here, bro. I can't do shit.
No, I ain't gonna say hypostasis. I mean, it could be that as well, but I ain't gonna go too far on that point and make a leap. But basically, Jesus is God with two different entities. But the thing is, what I noticed, what I read, based on a quote that so-called took place at this Council of Antioch in 341.
I'm telling you, bro, he's right there.
Which is that the semi-Arians also believe that Jesus was begetted with God, from God,
this dude, bro, he moving me
eventually, but this happened before all ages. That's the little twist. It's like, read deeper into it. It's almost like they arguing the time or something, you know.
Shit, my man.
Anyway, so that's what they believe as far as Origin, and then the Eusebians later on believe the same thing. Basically, that's why people call them semi-Arians. But still, that concept compared to what Plotinus put forth as far as the free will, the soul, and the intellect, they're different. So I thought that was puzzling. Now, it was something that I read a while ago, but on my last one that I did, the official one, that was called Leading Up to Nestorius Part 2. This is something that I had forgot to mention. As far as the Eusebians, but reading about this again, you know, I came across the person who put this exact charge out. Not even charge, but statement out. It's quoted in one of Athanasius' old books, but it's available on Wikipedia as well. During this council, you know, they had put like about 3 or 4 creeds out there, aside from the 25 canons. And one of them was the declaration, almost like a further declaration, right? Basically. One of the people which his name is Stephanus, he was supposed to have been like the archbishop at this time during this council, even though it's disputed that it may be another person. But as far as him and what they wrote about him, he said, we are not Arians. How can we be Arians after a presbyter? Boom, right? You know what I'm saying? Historical note, can't dispute that. In other words, because Arius, even though he had some influence, he was never a bishop in the first place. So when you consider ranking, he's a lot less entitled than the bishops around. Presbyter is basically a fucking minister, you know what I'm saying? Although he was a theological scholar as well. As far as his official position, he was a presbyter. So they said, how can we follow after him, in other words? You see what I'm saying? But still, that also makes my point about why I believe Arius is the originator of this radical concept in the first place, in its purity, by the way. You know what I'm saying? Without being mitigated and dumbed down and euphemized. He's the originator. Because the people that are called Eusebians and then other Arians throughout the Orient prefecture all basically believe in what Origen put forth, you know. And if somebody that existed way before him that had that same concept, okay, that's fine. But as far as my knowledge, it was at least going back to him, definitely in Caesarea Maritima in Palestine today. So Arius would have to be the originator of the real definition of that term in the first place. But anyway, yeah, they drew that little line and made that clear that they didn't really consider themselves to be Arians. Now I'm looking at it like, okay, if that's true, and it looks like it is based on a quote from Athanasius. The term semi-Arians is something that's more so historically ascribed to these people. But still, conceptually speaking, there is three major differences that exist. All right, so that's one of the creeds. Let me see the other one. I'm trying to see if I can remember this right now. This is my practice one. The other one was...
There's always these fucking garbage. That's doom. I can't do shit.
Damn, I forget. But I'm gonna try to go through the canons real quick. As far as the canons, right? It's about 25 of them that got drafted. And I wrote down the ones that stood out because, to me, because I read through each canon, all 25 of them. And a lot of it basically mirrors what was officialized and promulgated in the first major council in 325, Council of Nicaea. So I ain't feel like I needed to really highlight those in particular, but it's a few up more than a few that I highlighted. I'm gonna see if I can remember all of them in order. Okay, Canon 1, for example. If you was like either a bishop, a deacon, or a presbyter, if you got deposed and you continue to uphold your position and then execute those duties from which you basically been fucking fired from.
Don't pass that nigga the ball, bro.
Damn. See, I'm out there. See, I know most of them, but I'm gonna still have to do some processing in my mind. I could go through the next one all the way, like 10, for example. He was an auxiliary bishop, which is you a bishop, but you like a bishop of a small area. In other words, you really don't exist equally in rank with a regular bishop, for example. But Canon 10, like, basically broke down the limitations of their positions. Like bishops, they can elect deacons and people like that, and readers and all that type of shit. If you were a country bishop or auxiliary bishop, you were not allowed to elect a deacon, but you can have what's called a subdeacon. You know what I'm saying? And you'll still have to, of course, recognize the archbishop of the provinces from which you come from, basically. And I'm gonna take a leap. I'm gonna say prefecture as well, since all of this is a part of the Orient anyway. But that was like a limitation as far as them. Then you got let me see, you got 11, and then you got 12. You got 14, and then you got 19, and then 25. Those are the ones that I know about. 4, 6, 8, 9, 10, 12, 14, 19, and 25 so far. 25, for instance, like that one, it's just basically about the treasury of the church. Like if you're a bishop, you able to take some money out to fund yourself, so so you can have food to eat, clothing, that type of stuff, shelter more than likely as well. But they only mention food and clothing. You can take money out modestly to help yourself in that aim, so you can be comfortable enough to perform your duties.
Panic passing, man.
But if you choose to use the money otherwise for self-gain, and you're not taking care of the expenses of the church, paying for these farms or the rent of these farms, etc., then yeah, you would be deposed. And I think excommunicated as well. That's one of them. You know what I'm saying? Then you got 12, 14. I go through all of them, but like I said, it's just a practice one. I really just wanted to highlight that guy Plotinus because I think his story is interesting. Nice little background. Because I got an opinion that kind of, I wouldn't say it completely involves the way he look at it.
Nah, fuck them, man.
But the way he look at it, I know for sure, like what I wrote about this in Metaphysical Addendum, at least slightly touches on that. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying not to unveil some of that shit because that's another whole little future thing. The Metaphysical Addendum. So I got this, like I broke down will in 3 different ways. This was before I heard about this guy Plotinus, by the way. And that the will thing is just one part of it. I got so many different facets that I combined in that essay. But as far as will, I say you got functioning will, you got incorporeal will, and then you got holistic will. And I broke down basically what each one is for.
Oh my God, man.
And
Thank you.
Dimensions that they concern. It's real interesting. So you take his concept as far as the soul, free will, and intellect. On the soul part, I wrote my opinion on that as well. But I included the concept of karma to help me make my point. But it was kind of like a slight refutation. Well, I ain't gonna say a slight, but it was a refutation of karma. Then I also explained why I think like I said, I ain't all my shit is in core, in the core. Everything that I think, all subjects, all that shit. You know what I'm saying? I just be trying to unravel and figure this out, and I enjoy doing it. But yeah, I brought up the alien situation and all kind of thought-provoking facts, as well as some hypotheticals to help make the point. Thus, a little bit of reflection there. You know what I'm saying? That helps the reader get where I'm coming from. But yeah, I'm finna listen to this.